Swear it is. No.
Okay. Okay, this is the opening of the Oldham County Code Enforcement Board, Wednesday, September the 2nd. Before we get started, I'd like to have everyone sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give this board is true and accurate to the best of your belief and knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. Before we start with the agenda, I just want to make a little change. My mask will stay up. My apologies for that. But I'm going to just change the agenda just a little bit. When we met last week, or last month, I just wanted everyone to be aware in the passing of Daryl Townsend. He was our code enforcement officer, and we truly loved working with him. He will be missed, and I just wanted, as a board, for all of us to take a moment and recognize all the contributions that he did for us and for the county, and how much he will be missed. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Jim for just a moment.
In lieu of that sad news, we have good news. Chris Clark is our new code enforcement officer. This is week 2. After the first week, he actually came back and said, I like doing this. So you'll see Chris here instead of Daryl.
Well, thank you.
And I just want to say, hear to Daryl. He was a good man.
And Chris, we welcome you, and we're glad you came back. After we finish our meeting, we hope you'll come back after that, too. Okay? Now I want to go back to following the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes? And I need a motion to approve. A motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay. All right, we're going to turn the floor over to you. We have your first citation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sir.
All right. So Tom McIntyre, Senior Planner, Oldham County Planning and Development Services. So I guess I'll skip the first paragraph. But so as we just mentioned, Daryl was diagnosed with terminal illness in the March-April timeframe. That's when he took an extended leave of absence. At that point, I was tasked with performing all the code enforcement duties, which includes enforcing the Oldham County sign ordinance. And then back in, was it May, Governor Beshear opened back up government offices, and staff was tasked with picking up the snipe signs that were out in the county right-of-way, attached to utility poles near intersections, things of the like. Staff would then call the business sign, the business the sign was promoting, to explain the regulations surrounding the signs and as to where to place them, how tall they can be, the size of them, so on and so forth. So signs placed between the sidewalk and street pavement in the grassy area, that's right of way, can't do that. And also if they're on the inside of a ditch line, so if you're driving down, ditch is on the right side of the road, and if they're in between the pavement and ditch line, we would pick those up. A great rule of thumb is if we use a 60-foot right of way for most roads around here. So if you're standing on the double yellow and you do count out 30 feet to either side, that's the county right of way. So if there's a sign within the 30 feet of the center line of the road, you would go out and pick those up. For the most part, businesses would comply with our request, but for those who didn't, a second phone call would follow, reiterating that signs cannot be placed in the county right of way. Each one of those calls would end with with staff stating that the next sign that would be picked up by the code enforcement office, we would fine them $150 per sign per the judge's directive, and we wouldn't even call. You just get it in the mail. So that second call warning via citations applies to all 3 cases that you will hear today. And we also have digital photos available for review. So we didn't, just pick them up and then send them a citation. We have pictures, we have locations of where it was sent, and we also have the citation. So those 3 things were sent to the business owner. So it wasn't, we're just picking them up randomly. We had proof. So on our amount,
So, Tom, if I can stop you, for the board's benefit, everything he said up to this point is by way of background. It relates to all 3 of these, so you won't hear him repeat it for each case.
Correct.
That's just what we were tasked with in the absence of Daryl. And for everyone's benefit, I'm Jim Urban. I'm the Director of Planning and Development Services, and so code enforcement is part of our Planning and Development Services office.
On or about May 18th, Director Urban and myself picked up roughly 40 signs on a Monday morning. And up to that month, which was May, we had picked up 75 that month. In June, we picked up 85. And the year-to-date for signs right now, at this point, is 432 snipe signs. So I've also spoken with Melissa Horn, our treasurer, in an effort to get information on when I called them. Their county phone system only goes back 3 days, so I can't figure out or tell you exactly what day or time, but I'm confident in saying that the second calls occur between the weeks of July 6th through the 10th and the 13th through the 17th. And then the following week is when a lot of these citations went out. So, I mean, I feel like we gave them fair warning, and may or may not have fallen on deaf ears. Maybe they didn't understand, but fact of the matter is, we picked up the signs and we're here today. Other than that, do you have any questions so far? Nope. And I'll start with the presentation. So here we have citation 564 for Hydra Peak Power Washing. So the appellant is out of Sellersburg, Indiana. So there's violations as a permanent use of portable signs, such as snipe signs, folding signs, A-frame signs, or any other similar temporary sign. So what this means is that, they were placed out there with really no intention of going to pick them back up. They would be placed by a stop sign and left for someone else to take care of. Number 10, in addition to this, is any sign erected or maintained upon a utility pole, traffic control device, or tree, or painted or drawn upon rocks or other natural features. Essentially means they're stapled to utility pole. That's basically what that means. So here's a copy of the citation. So you can see in the bottom, there's 10 signs. Each bullet point notates a intersection. So like the first one would be Highway 329 at 1817 on the north side, and then there's 1817 on the south, so on and so forth. So I tried to organize it and make it as clear as possible as to where the signs were picked up. So the week of July 20th through the 24th, a total of 10 signs were picked up by the Code Enforcement Office. The offense was placing the signs within the county right-of-way. On July 29th, the offender was sent a citation detailing the sign graphic, along with an aerial showing the location of the sign when it was confiscated, as mentioned earlier. So here we have a graphic of the county. On the right side, it details the locations of the signs, and then the graphic itself with the stars are where each of the 10 signs were picked up.
Just circle that so they can see the general area
Down here.
where the stars are.
As you can see, it's definitely closer to the county line, but, have 329 is a heavily traveled road, and that's where the appellant decided to put him, place them. Be more than happy to answer any questions.
Is there anyone here who is the respondent here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, would the respondent like to speak? Before you get started, we're going to ask you to raise your right hand.
He was sworn in the
You
beginning.
were sworn in earlier, okay?
Yeah, everybody stood up.
Okay, and what is your name, please?
William Andes? William Andes?
Okay, all right, sir.
Was that? Oh, speak right here. Okay, thank you. William Andes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So you're able to say your side if you would like to say
Yes,
something?
Absolutely. So I'll just tell a little bit of the pre-story of putting out the sign. So in March, when this huge COVID outbreak happened, I was the VP of Sales and Marketing at my father's company in Sellersburg, Indiana. And he pulled me aside to his desk and he said, William, is there any way that you can take off next week because we don't have the money to pay you this upcoming week? From that time, his business completely dried up to nothing almost. So in my stead of not having a job, that is where Hydro Peak Pressure Washing came about. And Hydro Peak Pressure Washing came from me saying, I've lost my job because of COVID. I have no income coming in. Therefore, what will I do in order to replace that income? So, as a young man always desiring to live the American dream of running his own business, I began to work 80 hours a week, began to figure out what the best marketing way to market my business was, and I found that putting out signs was a very effective way to market a small business. And upon putting out the signs, I began to get calls, and I did get a call during that time, and it may have been Tom, I can't remember if it was Tom McIntyre or not, stating that, talking to me about the signs being placed out. And I don't know if that was for Oldham County or if it was more for the Prospect, Kentucky area, but he had mentioned a concern about putting the signs out. So later on in the conversation, I had asked the gentleman, do I have to have a permit to put these signs out? And he said, as long as it's under 6 square foot, you do not have to have a permit in order to put the signs out. So upon hearing that, I wondered where the line was in regards to putting out the signs. So when I put out the signs, I believe it was a Thursday morning. I got about 15 minutes of sleep that morning, and just put out signs everywhere because I had 3 guys I was trying to keep off unemployment. So I had to make sure they had a job, and I found that signs were effective. So I think when Tom found these signs, or whoever found these signs, it was probably from that morning of putting out the signs. I wasn't exactly sure where the county line was, so when I put out 100 signs that night, or roughly 90 to 100, I wasn't exactly sure if I was on Oldham County's side or if I was more towards Prospect side. So I think that was probably where I got myself in trouble, was I didn't know exactly where the line was on the road.
Okay, anything else?
What was that?
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just adding to that, I apologize. I didn't realize that putting those signs out was a discrepancy by Oldham County. I didn't know that putting the signs out the way I did would have been a $150 fine, and I definitely plead guilty in that, and I apologize about putting the signs out. Just doing my part as a business owner, trying to keep my employees fed and give them a job. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a
Thank you.
seat, please. Okay, Tom, do you have a rebuttal?
No, ma'am. I think I was pretty clear with the presentation, and I agree with what he said.
Okay, and I have to give you the opportunity. Do you have a rebuttal after he has a rebuttal? Okay. All right, at this point in time, we're going to open up the board. Does the board have any questions of either Tom or the... Anyone? Okay. Who are you wanting to speak to?
From the time that he says the signs were put out, you said there were 2 calls that were made, correct?
Correct.
He said he put the signs out in an evening and he thought that they were collected the next morning.
Okay, yep.
Were the when would those calls have been made? Would they have been made the day that you had collected them?
Yes, so I wouldn't have called unless, so Jim and Amy can attest, I had a stack of signs on one side of my office for quite some time, so I go pick them up, and sometimes it take me a week to 10 days to get, to where I can prioritize and just give them a call and say, hey, we picked it up again. This is what's going to happen next time we pick it up. We're not going to call you. You just expect a citation in the mailbox. And like I said, we couldn't figure out exactly when I called, but we can figure out on or about when. And I think just using the range of a week, I can give a good educated guess on when I called.
After you collected the first 10 signs, were there others that you had found around? Did you collect 10 the first time, I guess?
Oh, we eat at least 10 the first time. And then I called, and then he did hold off for about a month, and then we started seeing them trickle back into the county, picked those up, called again, and then that got us here.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, Jim?
I got one after the board. I want to be clear on something, Tom. Answering what you were just asked very clearly. we didn't pick up the signs the very first time they went out and gave them a citation. There was a round of signs that went out, we picked them up, a call was made, there was a second round of signs.
Correct.
And this 10 that were put out are what resulted in a citation because they were given a warning.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Tom,
Yes, sir.
were the second set of signs and the first set of signs in the same location?
That I could not tell you.
On 329?
More than likely. I'm sure there's a couple. So the first round of signs, I just simply hopped out of the car, put them in the truck, just moved on with the day. This set, with these 10, we went out, took pictures, organized it, documented everything. So as far as do I know exactly? No, but I think I can take a good educated guess that more than likely, at least one of those locations had one prior.
Well, and if you don't mind, I'm going to answer because I was also picking up signs. So our first round of sign was after we came back from quarantine. We said, let's go out and start picking up signs. So Tom went some direction, I went other directions. And at that point, we were not issuing citations or anything. We were collecting them, and then Tom, when he got to it, made phone calls. So that's why we don't know the location of the first round of signs.
Okay.
We were just collecting them and saying,
Correct.
we got them, you can't do this, don't put them out again.
Any other questions?
I make a motion that
Well,
citation.
before you jump there, now you've heard more questioning, you should ask the applicant if he
Oh.
has any response.
I'm sorry, thank you. Do you have a response? Yes, please, you have to come back up.
As far as the first location where we put out the signs, I know mainly it was towards the Prospect, Kentucky area. The second round of signs, I will say, was in a much different part of town. The second round of sign was more towards the Oldham County line, whereas the first was more towards Prospect and the other surrounding areas. But I will say the second round of sign was more towards the Oldham County, and I think that's maybe where the discrepancy came from.
Any other questions for this gentleman? Okay,
Jim, for the record, all of the signs picked up were in Oldham County, right?
That's
First time
correct.
and
We
second
don't
time.
go across the county line, right?
for board discussion, do we have anything we want to discuss?
I'll make a motion that citation 564 was properly issued on 7/29/2020.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that the citation was properly set. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who second? Okay, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries.
I'll follow that with a motion that the fee contested is $300 per sign for 10 signs.
It was 300 by how many signs?
Pardon me?
What were you saying? I'm sorry, could you repeat, please?
That the contested rate is $300 a sign. It's 10 signs. Total fine was $3,000.
Are you making the motion that it is $3,000 for the fine?
I'm sorry?
Are you asking the question or making the motion?
I made a motion.
Okay, thank you. It's a little hard to understand. Okay, we have a motion on the floor that, with the order that it is, the fine is $3,000. That's 300 times 10 signs. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Okay.
Can we have
all in-
discussion?
Sir,
Given that this is a contested rate is higher than if he had just paid the fine. And in the past, this board has established an amount to be paid immediately and the rest held in abeyance. And for all three of these cases, I'm going to recommend that you might consider the same thing, if you care to, that you could now establish an amount that would be appropriate to putting these signs out. You heard his testimony. And then if you hold the rest in abeyance, if they come back out again, then we would come back here and ask that the remainder of the fine be paid. So I'm just going to propose that as a possible consideration for you.
thank you, Jim. Thank you for helping us clarify that. Do we have, as we go through the second step, do you want to, as part of the remedial order, want to add some things to your motion?
I would amend my order
No, okay, good.
that $150 per sign be held in abeyance, and the sign be assessed at $1,500 for the 10 signs.
Okay,
That's not really what I said.
yeah,
Sorry.
Okay.
What you would consider is you keep that amount the same. Now, what I'm suggesting that you could do is just give them an amount that they need to pay and hold the rest of it in abeyance. So it's still $3,000 because you found them in violation. But now, in order to, where you've heard testimony that a person's trying to conduct a business and earn a living, et cetera, if it's compelling enough, that you could set the actual payment amount at something.
I thought that was at $1,500 in my motion, but I'll withdraw my motion.
Well,
okay. We have the motion on the floor has been withdrawn. Do I have another motion? Is there someone else who would like to make a motion?
Well, I'm sorry to stop you, and Matt, help me out here if you need to. What I'm saying is, don't withdraw your original motion that he's in violation and it's $3,000. You might want to consider amending it to include a payment amount that's not the $3,000. If you feel that you care to be lenient on the fact that they didn't come here expecting to pay more for the fine, they expected to come here and convince you that maybe the fine was too severe. I don't know how else to say it. So, without being arbitrary, select an amount that they need to pay immediately and hold the rest in abeyance. Matt, remember when we used to do that?
The motion I made is that the fine was $3,000,
Oh,
hold $1,500 in abeyance,
okay,
the fine would be $1,500.
I'm sorry. I thought you were changing that amount to be $1,500.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so are you
Sorry.
putting it back out there?
I'm sorry?
Are you gonna put your motion back out on the floor? Or not?
Actually, I'll leave it to the rest of the board.
Okay. All right. Is someone else ready to move forward?
Madam Chair, working in senior living myself, I know the difficulties that COVID has placed on everybody. I appreciate a young man trying to get out to support his family and make a living on his own. I know how hard it is to hire employees when there's a $400 or $600 carrot and stick out there right now. So for somebody to have the wherewithal to try to start a business, I have a lot of appreciation for that. I would think that if we could have a pay amount now of $500 and hold $3,000 in abeyance, would that be an appropriate motion?
You're close, sir. The total fine
Total fine would be
is
$3,000.
$3,000.
Yes,
And you're
but
saying
payment amount now would be $500.
$2,500 to be held in abeyance.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sir. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for $500 for the fine, because they are being fined at fault, with the balance being held in abeyance of $2,500. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Now I'm going to take a vote. For all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, this motion carries. All right, sir. Just so that you know, you will be receiving from the Oldham County office the fine of $500, with the intent that if there's no more signs out there and follow the guidelines, that the balance of $2,500 fine will be held in abeyance and will not be charged to you unless you come back and put the signs out again. Okay, sir? All righty. Thank you very much. Tom, you can work with him.
May I start?
All right, number 563?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sir.
So citation 563 for Palace Pressure Washing. They are out of LaGrange, Kentucky. So just like the last citation and the one that will follow this, number 7, under the signs prohibited, so permanent use of portable signs such as snipe signs, folding signs, A-frame signs, or any other similar temporary sign. Here we have the citation that was sent to the appellant. The week of July 20th through the 24th, a total of 2 signs were picked up by the Code Enforcement Office. The offense was placing the signs within the county or state right-of-way. On July 28th, the offender was sent a citation detailing the sign graphic along with the aerial showing the location of the sign when it was confiscated. Just like the prior presentation, on the right you have the 2 locations of the signs, and then on the left you can see where the Code Enforcement Office actually picked them up. And be happy to answer any questions.
All right, I'll let you sit down. And is the gentleman here who would like to speak? All right. And would you mind giving us your name, please?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Brian Powell. Good to meet you, maybe not under these circumstances, but as far as a statement, I'd like to introduce myself first. Besides my name, I moved here 6 years ago to LaGrange. I've been a pastor for 25 years, and I oversee now a network of churches here in the state of Kentucky, about 128 churches and compassionate ministry centers with the Church of the Nazarene. So I'm a district superintendent with the Church of the Nazarene. I had a youth pastor that worked with me in Raleigh, North Carolina for about 10 years when I pastored there. He was my son's youth pastor. His name's Josh Brown. Josh is like family, and we went to college together, and he visited us last spring, and we hadn't seen him in quite some time. I'm actually my wife and I are godparents to his 5 children. And being my son's youth pastor, now my son has a son, so they were catching up. And Josh has since started a pressure washing business in Nashville. He's still a youth pastor, but youth pastors don't pay very much. And he started earning extra money on the side with a little trailer behind his minivan. Well, 5 years later, he's the largest pressure washing outfit in Nashville. Brown's Pressure Washing, you can Google that, I'm sure he'll pop right up. So my son is a nurse, and he was talking to my son about earning some extra income. And so, of course, my son was interested in that, and lo and behold, I got to be the investor. So I don't get paid from Powell's Pressure Washing. I actually just help my son answer the phones and bid some jobs in the months that are very busy. So he started this last September, again, as a way to earn extra income. And I do receive reimbursements from the investment that I made as I'm trying to get, the money back that I've put into the business. The business actually didn't even take off through the fall. Winter was very dead, and then in the springtime, he started getting so many calls, he asked me to answer the phone for him. And I said I would do that, especially with COVID. Everything's been kind of put on hold, so I've had a little extra time to help him. We actually have a couple of pastors and one compassionate ministries director that works with my son because of COVID. And one guy moved here, and we did all the 501c3 work to start a new compassionate ministry center in downtown Louisville, and all that got shut down when the government shut down. I mean, we're back at it now. At the beginning of the summer, of course, we did invest in all sorts of advertising, both digital and things like yard signs and door hangers and that sort of thing. And we did a lot of research, or my son did most of the research, and he would then inform me what the rules were. But I received a call from Judge Vogel. Is that his gentleman's name? I guess everybody here knows Judge Vogel. And about the yard signs, and we actually had a great conversation. I felt like we became friends. He actually called me from his cell phone. I put it in my phone. I've talked to him since then. And I wanted to make sure that I understood the rules as it pertained to yard signage, because that's what I was called about. And Judge Vogel told me that yard signs could not be placed on any major highway or off of exit ramps. He said on secondary roads, they needed to be at least, he said if I would keep them 10 foot off the side of the concrete, that it would probably be safe. And so I had Jake, my son, and his guys go out and pick up whatever yard signs they could find that wasn't, according to the rules that the judge gave me. I called the judge back just to verify that I had this right. And because I found on Kentucky Statutes, Codes, and Regulations website, Statute 178, I believe the gentleman said that it's 30 foot on both sides of the yellow line. I mean, if that's the case, then you own trees in my front yard. It would be in the Kentucky Statutes, Codes, and Regulations says it's 15 foot off the center. It's 30 foot total. So I'm not sure, because the judge's instructions to me seem to align with this statute, Statute 178 in Kentucky Statutes, Codes, and Regulations. And so, and also I just want to make one correction on the slide. It said that Powell's Pressure Washing is located in LaGrange. We are not located in LaGrange. We are an LLC. Some mail comes to my home, which is in LaGrange, but the office for the business is in South Louisville. And that is on our website. It's on the Google web searches. The LLC is registered through that. Now, there may be some documentation with my personal address on it, again, because I receive mails and I pay the bills for my son on behalf of the business. So other than that, when Judge Vogel called me, I agreed to go get everything, and I sent my son out. And then I called him back and I said, what if we missed a couple? And he said, well, that won't be a big deal. He said, just as long as you're trying to abide by the codes. And I really do want to abide by the codes. We're not kidding you on that. And I've even shared that with Tom. And so I also had some questions for the judge that he just said maybe sometimes they give a little leniency when it comes. I see real estate signs in certain places that never get taken down. Not just in front of homes in my neighborhood where the home is for sale, but also on the corner of my neighborhood and on the corner of the road that leads into my neighborhood, same sign. I see political signs and candidate signs advertising whatever it is they have to offer the community regularly, like filling up, and they're certainly, the ones I see certainly aren't abiding by any sort of rules from the statutes because they're right on the edge of the roads. And I see them continually in these places. And so, from the time I talked to Judge Vogel, however, we have literally, with a wheel measurer, like you measure a square footage with, have measured from the side of the highway, the concrete. Usually it takes us to the other side of the ditch to put up any signs. Anytime he gets permission from anybody to put one up, we measure the distance based on what Judge Vogel. And I guess I'm just a little confused as we're here today about the discrepancy in what the judge has informed me of on more than one occasion, and what I've been informed of through this citation, because it is quite confusing. But with that said, we've not put up many more signs since then. We have put up some based on the judge's ruling. At this time of year, things are starting to slow down, but I mean, unless they're illegal, I would prefer to keep using this sort of advertisement. I understand completely these, and I sort of told my son, you should have had enough common sense or to not put these things on exit ramps and, at the bottom of really highly trafficked areas where there weren't others. But it seemed like he kind of used the rule of thumb on the distance the judge gave him and based on where other signs were located that he had seen there for many, many months. So I guess that's all I have at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. Tom, would you like to have a rebuttal?
Yes, ma'am. So number 2, as you can see up here, Cedar Point Road at Stonefield Lane, we had picked up one of the signs. Then I had contacted the appellant. And then just last week, we were back out there, the same exact location, with a brand new sign. So the week of August 24th through the 28th, which was last week, a total of 2 more signs were picked up by the Oldham County Code Enforcement Office. The offense was placing signs within the county right-of-way. A citation was not issued for those particular signs. And here, as you can see, this is the same exact place, same sign, after it's been picked up. And that also, a phone call did follow the last time I picked him up. So, I mean, it was back to back.
Madam Chairman, I have something to add as well.
Yes, sir.
I picked up that sign the first time, and that's what resulted in part of the citation.
Correct.
I live right down the street. And Chris Clark picked it up, and he'll have to testify himself just recently, a second time, in the exact same location. So it really wasn't outside of the right-of-way. The other thing I want to clarify is we don't operate under the same statute that Mr. Powell was talking about. When Tom mentioned 30 feet from the center line of the road, the truth is you're supposed to find out where the property line is. But not knowing that and not going out and surveying every single piece of property, generally speaking, we say it's on the other side of any ditch that might be out there. Because typically, the roadway and a ditch line are inside the public right-of-way. So the citation of the statute of 15 feet, that's for when there is no known right-of-way that exists. It is assumed that they're all 30 feet wide, so 15 feet from each side of the center line. And so that's not the statute we apply. Regardless, it's incumbent upon the person who puts them out to call the planning office where we issue the permits. You heard the first person mention that they had called and asked the question, do we need to permit them? And the answer is no. The other component of this is if you put them out on a piece of property, you have to have the property owner's permission to do it. You can't just go put them outside on the other side of the ditch line and say, well, it's not in the right-of-way any longer. I talked to Judge Vogel about what he had told Mr. Powell, and he said, I told him he had to have permission from the property owner. So each property is allowed to have a sign as long as there's a permission. Otherwise, a number of people could go put signs out on somebody's property without permission, and what we end up with is clutter of signs everywhere. So I just wanted to add that. Again, that's testimony because I'm part of the team that picked them up.
Okay. Do we need Chris to come up and testify? Does he need to testify also?
I think it would be good to just have him state what the date was that he picked up the
Okay.
last 2 signs.
Please, come forward, please.
I was introduced earlier, but again, my name is Chris Clark. I'm your new code enforcement officer for the county. I was on Highway 329 on August 27th last week, approximately 10 in the morning. And I saw one of these, the signs that we're here about today. The sign was located at the intersection of Spring Hill Trace and 329. I believe that property is the Chlor Farm. I've always referred to it as the Chlor Farm, but it was definitely in the ditch. I took a photograph of it and gave it to Tom. The following day, 10:34, I was in Buckner at the intersection of Cedar Point Road and Stonefield Lane. That sign was 5 to 10 feet off the roadway. again, I wish I had more experience to help you guys. Trying to learn every day.
Thank you very much. Mr. Powell, would you like to come back up and rebuttal? Do you have a rebuttal for this?
First, I guess I have some questions. Why, I heard Mr. Urban say that you don't necessarily follow the same statutes. I'm just curious, I didn't really hear reasoning why. Is there a different statute book, or does Kentucky not have similar guidelines for all government-maintained roads?
Well, I'll answer that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would love that.
In our subdivisions, 60-foot right-of-way is put to record. In some of our county roads, there is a definite road right-of-way, and it could be greater than 15 feet.
Sure.
That's a default number that if a right-of-way distance is not known, it's a prescriptive easement, and it is in the state statute there because people have said, well, I own to the center line of the road, and if the road has been there for so long, that statute says, well, people have been passing across that property, so it's a minimum of 30 feet altogether, 15 from the center line.
So to understand you correctly, the 15 from the center line is the rule of thumb, not the 30 feet from each side?
No. The first example I gave was there are places where there's more than 30 foot of right-of-way granted by deeds and by record plats. In the absence of that, the 15-foot or the 30-foot width, 15 from the center line applies.
Gotcha.
That's if it cannot be identified. You've all heard the old story about, oh, my property goes to the center of the road, and in some cases, that's the way land was divided. Or the road was put in, and then they went, well, it's across my property, but that's okay. When you cannot decide what that right-of-way is, that's when the 30-foot or a 15 from center line applies,
Gotcha.
according to that statute.
So then really all we can do then is follow the statutes that are on the books if we're trying to do, and talk to people like the judge if.
No, you need to talk to us. The judge oversees all of us, but he doesn't know the particulars of that ordinance. If you asked him what the ordinance number was, he couldn't tell you. We work for the judge. You really need to call our office, and we'll tell you exactly where that right-of-way is if we know it.
Sure, okay, that's fair enough. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I don't want to get lost on too many things here, is that somebody brought up knowing the property owners, which I feel like, I mean, fairly, I would feel like that is kind of a moot point, in the sense that my son knows so many people, hundreds of people. He's a very extroverted kind of person, and he cleans people's houses in order to put for free in order to put a sign in some prominent location. So, I mean, unless, I guess we've got someone complaining about a sign being on their property, I'm not sure how that could play into this hearing. I mean, do we know for certain that he didn't have permission to put signs where they were when they were on the other side of the ditch?
Well, we don't have anything from you. It's incumbent upon you to give us that information, not for us to find out.
But if a property owner gives him permission to put a sign up, we don't have to call y'all.
You're supposed to get a signature on a sheet that says it's okay. And if you give us that, then we're okay.
But that's like a permit, isn't it?
It's permission from the owner. You can't just go put stuff on somebody else's property without their permission. And that's what we're
So
asking.
me as an owner, when somebody, like, for example, we had a swimming pool put in last year, and I gave him permission to put a sign in my front yard until, for a
Stop
month.
right there.
Yeah,
You gave him permission.
right.
Right. So.
I gave him permission, you didn't. He didn't call you.
Right.
Right.
Because you gave him permission, you had one sign on your property, and that's allowable.
That's what I'm saying here.
You gave him permission, and we didn't go pick up that sign. It was in a subdivision on a street that we weren't looking at.
I understand. I think we're agreeing. I think we're agreeing, actually.
No, well,
Or I misunderstood.
You're supposed to get the permission, a signed permission from the owner and give it to us. That's where we're not agreeing.
But that's what I said. That gentleman that put the pool sign in my yard didn't get a signed permission slip from you.
We didn't go take the sign either. We didn't go down that street, we didn't see it.
Well, how do
And
we know when to get a permission slip and not?
anytime you put out a sign.
Well, he put out a sign and didn't get a permission slip.
All right.
In Oldham County.
I'm gonna stop arguing with you, sir.
Well, I'm just trying to understand, because I'm misunderstanding.
I'm out.
If some
I'm
people
telling
can.
you, I'm telling you the rules, and you're arguing against the rule.
Right, because it's arbitrary.
It is not.
It is arbitrary. If the guy that put my pool in can somebody please help me understand? I'm legitimately trying to understand. I talked to Judge Vogel at length about this, and after this, I plan to call him back and talk at length more, because you're saying to me that the gentleman that put my pool in did not have to call y'all and get a signature, because I gave him permission. But if my son, who doesn't live in Oldham County, puts up a sign, he has to call and get permission. What is the difference in those two things?
Gentlemen,
I'm not
can
going
I,
to
can I,
argue, I'm
can
not
I?
going to
Because
argue.
there's no
with-
difference.
Okay,
There's
can we
no
just
difference.
move forward with this?
You're wrong, and you won't listen, and you need to slow down a little bit, because you did the same thing to Tom on the telephone. You're being insistent on something, and you're not listening.
You're not.
The rule is this. I'm telling you what the rule is.
And
If you want us to come pick up your pool guy's sign, we'll go by there and pick it
I
up.
don't want you to, because I gave him permission. But he didn't get permission from you, and so if my son gets permission from a property owner, does he also have to get permission from you? That's what I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
These signs are illegal unless there's a permission, okay? They're illegal. You're scattering signs around the county, and the judge has told us directly that throwing all these signs out becomes clutter. And if everybody did it, it would be, there would be so many signs that you couldn't even read them.
I understand.
For years, we have been picking these up, for years.
And I agree with that.
And what the judge has directed us is that, and what we know is that each property is allowed to have one sign. And
Tom,
if,
did you say to me that a sign needed to be a certain, that you said they're illegal? These little signs are illegal? See, these are things that we need to know, because the statute says that a certain size, if it's small enough, I think you told me that.
I'm sorry?
Certain size signs don't have to have a permit, like only after they reach a certain size. That was in my notes from our conversation.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
can I ask just for a moment so that we can bring back into the case that we have? What I would strongly suggest, once we finish this, you sit down with the Planning and Zoning Office and talk to them. There's lots of different guidelines that will help you decide where you can put your signs and what you can do. Today, we're here for these signs, so let us handle that.
Sure, that's what I've attempted to do with these signs.
Okay,
On the
well-
other side of ditches, at the neighborhood described earlier, I know my son's cleaned many houses in that Spring Hill Trace subdivision, and I know for a fact, because there's always a sign, even a banner hanging on the fence advertising apartments or rental houses or something. And I know that you couldn't see that sign if it was on this side of the ditch. It's so low. He has to go on the other side of the ditch. Now, that becomes a property owner thing. I don't know if he knows that property owner or not. That's between him and the property owner. I mean, I don't clean houses with him. I don't go out to these job sites. I just give him the rules, and I really am trying to understand. Some of these rules seem arbitrary. When I go to great length, I talk to the judge for 30, 40 minutes each time and took explicit notes because I wanted to do it right.
I understand that,
And then I
sir.
still get fined, and I'm here listening today to someone telling me that we actually broke rules that the judge told us were the rules.
Well, my suggestion is, again,
well, I can go get
after the meeting.
I can go get the judge if you want
No,
to hear the
no,
judge's
sir.
I
testimony.
would love that. Is he here?
Okay, gentlemen.
I would.
Okay, hold up a second. The judge is absolutely wonderful, and he can tell you everything about this county. But right now, we have this given situation. This given situation is managed by the Oldham County, these folks,
Sure.
okay? My suggestion to you, I'm just asking you to do this, after we finish this case, is that you spend some time talking to these folks. These are the folks who can give you the guidance. Our county judge has the entire county he's looking for. These guys are responsible for holding, and unfortunately can lay out the fines.
Sure.
So
And
let's
they
work
have
with these
given me
folks.
guidance. I've talked to Tom at length as well. He gave me a lot of guidance.
Well, if you don't like the guidance, that's another thing. But you guys need to work together.
I feel like we followed the guidance. We've measured with a tape measure off the side of the road and went to the other side of the ditch. And beyond that, we took up every sign that we could find that we had put out before them.
Okay.
I mean,
but
I don't
you
know how
have-
many went around taking up signs, but we did. We did pick up signs.
Okay, sir, but we have a case before us that there are 2 signs that we're talking about.
Sure, that, I don't know, when they were put there. Again, I don't put them up. Just one more thing I want to clear up. I mean, Powell's Pressure Washing is an LLC, and the address is Louisville, Kentucky, and, someone mentioned possibly a lien going on my house how can a lien go on my personal property for a business that's based in Louisville that is an LLC, which is independent of individual ownership?
Our attorney.
We'll cross that road when we get to it. I mean,
Okay.
right now, there's no lane.
I
Right
really
now,
want you
there's
to
no
hear-
finding that you violated the ordinance. So I'm not gonna
All right.
start making comments on something
That's
that
fine.
is
I
premature.
really am trying to abide by the rules. I don't know how many people's went around and picked signs up, talked to the judge for 45, 50 minutes on 2 occasions, and really tried to understand, only to be called again and sent pictures, and it just seems very arbitrary. It's almost like, okay, this guy doesn't have to call us if you give him permission. This guy does. It's got to be on the other side of the ditch. It's 30 feet. It's 15 feet. It's 10 feet from the concrete. That's a lot of information to process.
It is.
When you're trying to abide by the rules. We want to abide by the rules.
I
We really do.
understand, and I think you do. So if
I've
you're,
not put out another sign since they called us,
okay,
so.
All
Or
right.
he hasn't.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we've had a lot of discussion. Do we have the board have any questions? And who would
Madam
you like
Chair.
to talk to? You want to speak to Tom? Tom has a question. Okay, please.
Now, did you have a question, or may I supplement? Sure. So I'd like to supplement the presentation. So as mentioned earlier, we do have pictures of every single, or all the signs that we sent citations out to. Cedar Point. So we picked up signs on the 23rd of July and at 28th of August. Here are the pictures from just last week. If this wants to work. So as you can see, right here, it's on the other side of the road. There's no houses over there. They did no work on that property. That is the north side of a manufacturing, there's a manufacturing building on that property. So they're leaving a subdivision, placing a sign on the other side of the road. So each car that leaves the subdivision looks at that sign. That is not placed on a single-family property owner that hired them. Also, as you can see, that location is the same location as when Mr. Urban picked it up on the 23rd of July, across the street, leaving the subdivision. Yes, sir.
If either one of those signs, he had a written permission signed from that landowner to have those signs there and sent it to you, those would be legal
Absolutely.
signs.
Absolutely, and then if, as long as it's out of the right-of-way and you have permission from the property owner, then yes, you can. No permit would be needed, it'd just be a simple permission.
I have a question.
Yes,
Where
ma'am.
those signs were placed, were they in the right-of-way?
Yes. Now, what I can say is, Mr. Urban picked up the first sign in July. Mr. Clark picked up the sign just last week. So me physically, was I out there? Did I see it? No. But I rely on their expertise to enforce the ruling.
Any other questions of the board? Okay, are we ready to start with procedural matters? If there's no further discussion?
I make a motion, please. I move that the citation was properly issued on 7/28/20 to the violator. The respondent requested a hearing to contest the violation, and he is present. The citation is, let's see, 290-070, Section 7 of the zoning code. That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now I'm going to take a vote. All in favor say aye for this motion. All in favor say aye for this motion.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, this motion carries.
And I also move that the violations was committed on zoning ordinance 290-070-7 because the signs are placed in the right-of-way of the roads. And I guess remedial order is that the violation is contested, which would make a $300 fine per sign. So that would be $600. But I would say hold $300 in abeyance and make a fine $300.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for $600 with $300 being held in abeyance. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
A second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, we have, motion carries. Okay, Mr. Powell, you have been found to be in violation. With this violation, you have a fine of $600, with $300 being held in abeyance. So you will receive the paperwork for the $300, and as long as there's no further signs out, and you're working with the county, the code enforcement office, the $300 will not be charged to you, the additional $300. Do you understand? All right, sir, I appreciate your time.
Is there any room for additional question? Just clarity?
Not at this time.
So no more clarity?
Yes, sir.
All right.
But I would talk with the office,
I have.
and again, and again. All right, so are you ready?
All right, yes, ma'am. So this is citation 562. The appellant is Kirby Ray Miller out of LaGrange. The violations, just like the previous two, permanent use of a portable sign, such as a snipe sign, folding sign, A-frame sign, or any other similar temporary sign. Shown here is the citation sent to the appellant, detailing, I believe it is 7 signs. On or about July 16th and the week of the July 20th through the 24th, a total of 7 signs were picked up at the Oldham County Code Enforcement Office. The offense was placed on the signs within the county or state right-of-way. On the 28th of July, the offender was sent a citation detailing the sign graphic, along with an aerial showing the location of the sign when it was confiscated. Here, you can see the 7 sign locations on the right side with the stars within the county showing the location of the sign. You happy to answer any questions?
Okay. Is the respondent here?
I believe so.
Okay, would you like to come forward, sir?
Good afternoon, Board. My name's Kirby Miller. I'm from here in LaGrange. I've lived here my whole life. My father was he retired as the superintendent of public works for LaGrange. He was actually the person that did, taking down all the signs for years and years and years. I was called and notified that my signs had been taken down. I'll just be short about it. And I was advised that, about the statute, how far they had to be out the roadway and everything. I thought I went back and put I'll agree right now, I went back and put all my signs back in spots, but I thought I put them far enough away, from the right-of-way. Evidently it wasn't. I apologize for that, but at no time was I told that I was going to be fined any amount of money for any signs that were taken down or any of that. I was just advised of the statute, and that was it. I was never told that I'd have to come to court, I'd have to be fined if my signs were put back up or anything like that. So, I agree and I admit, to putting the signs back up because, started to work for myself when this, COVID thing started, so I started, going out and trying to get some money. And I put the signs up for advertisement, and, when I was called and told about it, I said, okay, that's fine, I'll put them, away from the right-of-way. I thought I did. Evidently I didn't. I apologize for that, but like I said, I was never told that I was going to be fined per sign or anything like that. In lieu of that, if I did, I'm not an idiot. I would not have went and put a bunch of signs back up get fined $150 a piece or something. I mean, I'd be crazy to do that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Tom, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, ma'am. So I may not have spoken to him directly, but I can assure you that I would have left him a voicemail stating that if this were to happen, if we pick it up again, no questions asked, you'll receive a citation in the mail. There's 3 frequent flyers is what we call them. These guys were on our radar for months. I've spent countless hours organizing all this information so that when this came to be, we had everything, all our ducks in a row. It was very clear that, we gave them a warning, we gave them a second warning, and then citations started being sent in the mail. So I'm sorry that he feels that way, but I've spent countless hours. I can guarantee you that, and I can say with every bit of confidence that I talked to Mr. Powell, the Hydra Peak Pressure Washing, William Andes, and this gentleman stating our intentions. I believe I made it as clear as I possibly could before we took action.
Mr. Miller, do you have a response?
Just stated that you left a message. You talked to me.
Well, then I did talk to you.
On the phone. No messages. So you're not quite sure what you said or what you did.
Okay. Are there any board member questions? Anyone want to discuss?
I have one question. Tom, when you picked up the signs the first time,
Bring Tom, is it for Tom?
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Continue.
Tom, you picked up the signs the first time,
Correct.
and you picked up the signs the second time?
It's either my,
It could have actually been Tom or I, because we were both
I'm
going out.
just wondering if they
but
were in the exact same locations, exactly.
I can tell you at the corner of 393 and 42, there's a white picket fence, and it's 3 segments. There's a fence painting sign, because what he did is he took political signs, spray painted them white, and took black stencils.
That's not what he's asking you. He's asking you, were they in the same location?
Yes.
Stay with
So
that.
they're the
Yes.
same distance
Just
off the
answer
road.
that.
Yep, they were in the same location, that is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. Are we ready to move forward with procedural matters?
I'd like to see pictures or proof that the signs were in the same exact spot. If they were in the same spot, you're going to have proof to say you took a picture of them the first time, they were in the same spot, and then they're in the same spot the second time, or you're just making an assumption.
Tom, do you have pictures?
Sure do. That picture? So this is a picture from when Russ Rose, the recycling coordinator, was helping us. So that's 393 and 42. And as mentioned, we didn't take pictures the first time we went and picked up everything. These are only pictures we have are from the second time. So when we did move forward to citation, we had documentation. So do I have a before and after for you? No, I don't. But I've been driving out there, and even in May, I would leave instead of driving down 71 to get back to Jefferson County. I go down 42. Some days I go down 146. So I was driving it quite often. And there's areas that are higher probability than others. And I just, just memory.
May I see that picture again? Thank you.
Are we ready to start with procedural matters now?
Yes.
Who would like to start?
I'd like to make a motion that citation was properly issued on July the 28th, and that the respondent requested a hearing and is here.
Okay, we have, for procedural matters, that the citation was properly issued on 7/28, and that the respondent is here. So we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I make a motion that the fine be imposed on the company cited, or the citing would be $300 times 7, or $2,100. Recommend that one half of that be held in abeyance with an initial fine of $1,050, and the rest to be deferred and held in abeyance.
Okay, sir, we have a motion on the floor for that the respondent has been found in violation with a fine of $2,100 with $1,050 to be paid now and the balance to be held in abeyance. Is that correct?
You say 21 or 31?
21. Did you say 21?
31.
Oh, 31, I'm sorry.
3,100.
No, it's 21.
No, it's
$300 times 7 is
I
2,100.
apologize. 2,100, yes.
Okay. The motion on the floor is for the fine of $2,100 with with $1,050 to be paid now and the balance to be held in abeyance. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sir. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second.
Discussion.
Call for a vote. All in favor,
Well,
say
hang
aye.
on, Madam Chairman,
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
discussion.
That's discussion, I'm
In the
sorry.
first case, you found that the fine was $3,000 and only had him pay $500 and held the rest in abatement. Now you got one that's $2,100 and you're going to charge him $1,000. I'm wanting to make sure that you're not being arbitrary. Because it sure seems arbitrary to me. I don't know if there's compelling evidence that says, okay, we're going to make them pay half, where the first one, they only paid $500 instead of half. So I want you to make sure that you think about that and potentially reconsider.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to amend my motion
You're amending your motion? Okay.
to initial fine of $500 and the remainder to be held in abeyance.
Okay, so what is the total fine?
$2,100.
Okay. With the amount of $500 to be paid and the balance to be held in abeyance.
That's correct.
All right. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All right, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, Mr. Miller, as you have been so advised, you've been found in violation with a $500 fine, and with the balance being of $2,100 is the total fine, with the balance will be held in abeyance. All right, sir? That's it, sir. Do you have any questions? Thank you very much. Okay, is there any other business to come before the board today? Sir?
Minutes of the previous meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't we do that?
Not yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. For the minutes of the previous meeting, did everyone have a chance to take and read them?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, is there any other further business before this board? Okay, seeing none, we are so adjourned.
Once we stop recording, I want to make just one brief comment. So when you all write a citation, there's always a subsection